everyone. We are now starting our second faculty member. Jennifer Papaconstantinou is a graduate of the Institute of Holistic Nutrition and as valedictorian with first class honors. In addition to her nutrition training, Jennifer participated in a mentorship program studying the philosophies and teachings of Dr. Bernard Jensen, as well as completing certification courses in clinical iridology, live blood cell, and base allergy therapy testing. Jennifer is an energetic and dynamic professional. She is the founder of Heal Naturally Holistic Health and Nutritional Consulting Practice, where she offers complementary therapies and evidence-based clinical nutrition, which harmonizes the beliefs and practices of a balanced approach to a lifelong health achievement. She decided to pursue her passion as a health educator after successfully experiencing firsthand the profound effects of improved diet and lifestyle within her own family and her beautiful 4 children. She continues to offer educational workshops, corporate events, writing submissions, and also runs a very busy and successful practice within the GTA in Ontario. Jennifer teaches Symptomatology Part 1, Nutrition and Health, the Fundamentals, and also Lifespan at the Institute of Holistic Nutrition. And today, she will be discussing optimal digestion through holistic nutrition principles. Let's welcome Jennifer Papaconstantinou.
Oh, thank you for my lovely introduction, Elizabeth.
Okay, Jen. So just
share my screen now.
Yeah, you can share.
You can see that slideshow.
Perfect. Yeah, just go full screen.
There.
Okay, beautiful.
We're good.
Yeah. So Jennifer will be speaking until 1:15 Eastern Time, 10:15 Pacific. Then we will take any questions that you have, and also let you know what the prize of Jennifer's session is today. She has a wonderful giveaway, and we will do that at the end of her session.
Okay, excellent. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. Today we'll be talking about optimal digestion using principles and practices taught and learned at the Institute of Holistic Nutrition. So this will be similar to a segment that I would be teaching in Symptomatology Part 1. However, there are many courses at IHN where you learn about digestion and the various aspects of it. And for anyone who has already pursued holistic nutrition and a holistic approach to health, you know that digestion is the gatekeeper for basically health and disease. So it's very, very, very intricate, but also very important in terms of healing and the way the immune system functions, allergies and, basically everything. The gut is also considered the first brain. So many neurotransmitters are also made in the intestinal tract. So even important for mood. So when we look at digestion, of course, many people think this really just happens in the small intestine. However, digestion actually starts when you start thinking of food. And so there is kind of an emotional and mental component to digestion where when you're hungry and you start to even just think of food, if you have something in the fridge at home and you're out and about and you're busy and you start thinking of that, or you start preparing what you're going to have for dinner, and your stomach will follow suit. It'll start making noise. It could start grumbling and groaning at you. You could start salivating. And so digestion really kind of like starts with the brain. But the definition in the dictionary and in our textbooks of digestion is the breakdown of food stuff. Into smaller parts. So actually digestion really just begins in the mouth. So there are two components to digestion. There is mechanical digestion, which is chewing, masticating, churning, peristalsis, the movement of the musculature of some of the digestive organs. And of course, this goes right from mouth to anus. So mechanical digestion happens kind of like the inner workings of an engine of a car, okay, all mechanical. However, the inner workings of an engine of a car don't happen without lubrication and oil and gasoline and, fluids and all of those things that are important to keep everything working. And so this would be considered, so mechanical digestion is on the right-hand side of the screen, and chemical digestion is on the left-hand side of the screen. So chemical digestion, again, begins in the mouth with the production of saliva, which secretes what's called salivary amylase, which starts digesting carbohydrates. And of course, saliva is very important so that you can swallow food and it goes down this big tube called the esophagus into the stomach. In the liver produces bile salts, which emulsify lipids, which are also known as fats, which aid in digestion. The gallbladder stores the bile, and then the pancreas secretes pancreatic juices and fluids, which we are going to talk about. So, like I said, it's very, very intricate. And we will talk about kind of like this looks good. This is what happens when digestion's going right. But these really aren't our clients in terms of being in clinical practice like I am. So I am sitting in my office. You can see my lovely dispensary, which is a bit messy back there. But anyway, it's my favorite place to be. And so people can have problems with mechanical digestion, and people can have problems with chemical digestion. So it all works together. And we're going to talk about more so what happens when digestion goes south and it's not working properly. So this chemical digestion, as we discussed, it happens right from the mouth with food going down the esophagus, with salivary amylase, which of course is a lubrication. So what can happen is if you don't chew your food enough, if you are eating too quickly and you're swallowing kind of big portions of food, and you're eating on the run, what can happen is very often food can get a little bit stuck right here. And a lot of people feel the need to kind of wash it down with water. Well, if you were chewing properly and you were producing enough saliva, you wouldn't need to wash the food down with water because it would already be lubricated and be able to go down the esophagus, through the esophageal sphincter, and into the stomach. The stomach produces an acid. This is called hydrochloric acid or stomach acid. You may know it as, we also call it in short, HCl. And in the stomach, you break down a lot of proteins, and this stomach acid is part of chemical digestion. Now, stomach is really the second step in digestion. And a lot of people, when they have digestive difficulties or digestive problems, they may go very quickly just to a health food store, pick up a probiotic, but that works much lower down. And because digestion goes from, I call it mouth to south, what is very important is to kind of make sure that you are addressing everything upstream as well. So this has to do with chewing, saliva, stomach acid, and bile, as well as pancreatic enzymes. And a lot of people do not pay attention to that. And so very often they're going maybe to a practitioner or a health food store and kind of trying to grab something that they hopefully think will work, and it may or may not. So the liver produces bile. It is secreted by the gallbladder, and along with that, because the gallbladder and the pancreas share what's called a common bile duct anatomically, so you could see that over here. Okay, so there's the gallbladder, and then there's this big duct, going into the small intestine. There's the pancreas and there's the duct, just anatomically so you get a visual. And the pancreas, its role is to secrete enzymes. These include amylases, lipases, and proteases. Amylases break down starches and carbohydrates. Lipases break down fats and triglycerides into triglycerides and free fatty acids. And proteases break down peptides into amino acids. Nucleases also break down DNA and RNA components. And then, of course, the pancreas secretes also a fluid called bicarbonate. So bicarbonate is a neutralizer. It neutralizes acid, so the stomach acid doesn't burn the rest of the digestive system as this kind of bolus of food is moving through. So what we want to focus on is basically when digestion goes awry. And these can cause all sorts of different digestive imbalances. And of course, a holistic principle is, so I have a quote here from George Herbert, who states, a good digestion turneth all to health. Dr. Bernard Jensen has many quotes about digestion. And just in case you don't know who Dr. Bernard Jensen is, because we do use a lot of his teachings and principles and textbooks in various courses at IHN. Dr. Bernard Jensen, he's known as the father of iridology. But back in the mid 1900s, he studied chiropractic, he studied nutrition, and of course, back then it was more holistic, but he studied more holistic principles. And he developed iridology into the practice that we do know today, which is reading the iris of the eye. So everything in the body is interconnected. For any of you who have ever gone for reflexology, you know that all the organs are in the feet. For an iridologist, all the organs are in an eye. For an auricular medicine specialist, all the organs also show up in the ear, in the Chinese acupuncture system, and so on and so forth. The human body is actually quite miraculous. So Dr. Bernard Jensen, he had a sanitarium in California, which his daughter actually took over after his death. He died from injuries of a car accident, but he healed over 350,000 people using the principles that we teach currently at IHN, combined with, of course, other practitioners from around the world who have very similar stories. And so Dr. Bernard Jensen, he was basically Mr. Bowel. And he talked very, very intimately and intricately about the importance of good digestion. So what affects digestion? So many different things. And sometimes it's really hard to just pinpoint how things went awry and what happened. So I've kind of put together kind of a short list here, even though there's 11 of them, of conditions and factors that can negatively affect digestion. So number one is choosing poor quality foods. So this would be alcohol consumption, caffeine consumption, processed food consumption, food that is dead. It has a shelf life. It's enzyme deficient. It takes a lot of effort to digest these foods. At the grocery store, the rule of thumb is to shop the four outer corners of the grocery store. And basically, most of the stuff in the middle is more processed, shelf-stable foods. Insufficient chewing. So again, we talked about just swallowing food before it's ready. So there's a type of practice developed by Dr. Fletcher, and it's called Fletcherizing. And Fletcherizing your food means that you basically chew each bite 100 times. So you will be the last one at the dinner table if you Fletcherize your food. Even chewing 50 times is better than what most people actually do today. So I've always been myself, just personally, a very slow eater. I've always been the last one at the dinner table. I've always pretty much taken my time in terms of eating until I had 4 children. And then I didn't have time to eat. So my children are all big now. They're big uns. They're not little ones. But I've probably been uh, guilty of chewing on the go and too quickly and swallowing too much food at once. Of course, eating fast and running around and not basically savoring your meal and savoring digestion. And so every time that you're eating in your car, or you're eating rushed, or you're eating on the go, digestion basically shuts down. And resources that should be used to digest food have gone into more of like a on the go type of stress response. So we don't want to do that too. And of course, in this century, of just busyness and never stopping, and everything's open 24 hours and running around, and the kids have sports and they have homework, and and your list goes on and on and on, and your boss is calling you, and you didn't finish XYZ. We are all guilty of just eating too fast and not sitting down and savoring our meals. Of course, overeating or eating too much. So the rule of thumb is to eat until you're 2/3 full. And of course, on holidays, we're all guilty of overeating. At weddings too. Some of those weddings that you go to are like 5-course meals. And, there's no room for anything else. Even by the time you get to dessert, you're kind of cross-eyed and wishing that it wasn't going to come until you see it and it's going to be delicious. So you try to make room for it. Low water and low fiber intake. So again, these are dietary choices. Not drinking enough water throughout the day. Another thing just to add to this is drinking too much water with your meal. So you should only be sipping your beverage with your meal. You should not be gulping and consuming too much water, because you do dilute the digestive fluids, and this can affect digestion too. So too much water or not enough throughout the day and just being in a chronically dehydrated state can definitely affect digestion. And simply not enough fiber. So a lot of processed foods, we call white flour, white rice products, very starchy products, white death. They've been stripped of their fiber, and they have only very simple fibers, which also is not good for blood sugar, but it's also not good for digestion. So poor nutrient availability just in general in the body. So digestion actually needs, for musculature and peristalsis, B vitamins to produce stomach acid, iodine, and zinc, and just in terms of being able to digest, you need good digestion. Now, smoking and alcohol, of course, these are very toxic to the body. They cause smoking can actually affect digestion in a very negative way. So can alcohol consumption. And of course, it affects also your stress levels. And alcohol is a very, very toxic to the intestinal tract. Smoking can cause a development of yeast, also known as candidiasis or candida overgrowth. So all smokers have some form of candida, whether this be in the gut or a systemic, which means that it has spilled out from the gut and it's now manifested in different areas of the body, which is a very larger problematic issue. So food allergies and sensitivity. So this is eating foods that basically just don't agree with who you are. And what that list is different for everybody. So of course, the main allergens or the main foods that show up on an IgG or IgE panel are always usually like wheat, dairy, tomatoes, chocolate, oranges, very moldy foods like cantaloupe and strawberries. But this list could be different for everybody. Some people may be, I remember when my son was having chronic health problems, we were already wheat-free and gluten-free back then when he was young. So this is child number 3 I'm discussing. And I just couldn't pinpoint what was happening with him. So I did actually seek the help of a holistic practitioner at the time who sent me for a food sensitivity test. And his number 1 food sensitivity was rice. And back then, he's 23 years old now. So back in those days, a lot of gluten-free products were rice-based. And of course, I started reading the labels of almost everything in my house that I had replaced the wheat from, and it all had rice in it. So we kind of had to toss that to the side and strategize and do a lot of home baking and no more convenience foods, even though they were gluten-free at the time. Now, stress is a factor because when you're stressed, it puts the body in a fight or flight response. And this basically does not leave much resources for digestion. And so, again, just calming down, eating, being mindful, bless your food, thanking your food, meditate, just eating in a more calm state can actually help with digestion. And this happened to my brother. My brother had chronic digestive problems. And then one day he just stopped complaining about his digestive system. And I asked him, because I'm a practitioner. So I talk about this stuff day to day. And I said, hey, I haven't complained about your stomach hurting. He goes, oh, you know what I just did? I slowed down. I started chewing my food. I ate more mindful. I stopped swallowing massive amounts of food at one time. And he goes, my digestive problems really just resolved. And I was like, okay, good for you. You didn't even, need a probiotic or a supplement or a regime or anything like that. You literally just recognized that you just needed to, just be more mindful of your diet. Of course, there's medications that can muck up digestion. So acid blockers known as proton pump inhibitors or histamine 2 antagonists can really mess up digestion, as you saw here. Digestion, really just starts with chewing and the stomach. And if you're going to block the acid in the stomach, you're really just shutting down digestion right from the get-go. So a lot of these medications really just work against the digestive system. Even though they reduce symptoms, they don't set you up for basically health. Antibiotics, of course, can affect the microflora and the flora, which is your garden of the small and large intestine. And then we want to talk about not eating organic food. So foods that are sprayed with pesticides, moldicides, larvicides, herbicides, and then glyphosate. And I do have a slide on glyphosate. Glyphosate is a bit of a digestive nightmare. And really, many of the holistically minded physicians and practitioners around the world really think that wheat is not, or gluten is not so much of a problem, more so than possibly the glyphosate. So there's a lot of research showing that, humans have consumed wheat, not in the form that we are doing it today, because it is hybridized, which means it has been altered. It's not a GMO crop, but it has been hybridized. And it has been bred to contain more gluten than it did in the past. So when my husband and I do consume wheat, we purchase what's called einkorn wheat, also known as hard red winter wheat, which is actually the heritage type of wheat. And so this is wheat the way our bodies used to know it, way back when, before they started agribusiness and changing our food supply and altering. So glyphosate is a huge problem. It does affect digestion. And glyphosate, the reason that it is different, it is because most pesticides and other sprays and herbicides and things like that are fat soluble, where glyphosate is different. And this is Roundup. It is water soluble. So it's quite a different entity. The way the body has to store it and detoxify it is much different. It puts a toxic load also on the kidneys, not just on the gut. So it is quite different. And if you're not eating organic, and I will tell you just from a research perspective, is that even organic foods, they're no longer sprayed with glyphosate while they're being grown. So they're considered organic because they're not being sprayed. But what they do is they'll lightly dust them with glyphosate after they're picked so that they don't grow mold. And then also these organic foods can often sit on the store of your grocery store shelf, on the shelf of the grocery store, and they're being sprayed with tap water and being watered. And there's glyphosate in the tap water. As I said, it's water soluble. So if they are not being kind of sprayed down with filtered water, you're still consuming unknowingly amounts of glyphosate. So it is something that is very, very difficult to avoid. It is very important to wash all of your produce very well in ozonated water, or even hydrogen, a little bit of diluted hydrogen peroxide, a bentonite clay, or even like a fruit or veggie wash. So when we want the stomach to be functioning properly, and we want to have sufficient amounts of stomach acid, so age-related, as we get older, we don't produce enough. Zinc, iodine, and B vitamins, as well as sodium, is very, very important to produce stomach acid along with hydration. The stomach is directly connected to the vagus nerve. So the more stress you have, the more you're in fight or flight, the less your stomach functions in terms of its ability to digest. So this has to do with the vagus nerve, or vagal activity. A diet too high in meat and refined grains, drinking chlorinated water. If you don't filter your water, you are the filter, and certain organs in your body will have to work extra hard to filter the contaminants out that a water filter would have done. Using the use of antacids and the proton pump inhibitors. So these are acid blocking medications. Okay. And then when we talk about digestion from mouth to south, there are certain choices that we make that are very toxic to digestion. So consuming coffee or caffeine in any form, from soda pop to caffeinated teas, as well as nicotine, what happens is the stomach empties prematurely, so it opens what's called the pyloric sphincter. And these substances also have a laxative effect. So, I get clients that say, yeah, I poop every day right after my coffee or right after my cigarette. And it's like, okay, that's not a real poop. That was an induced poop. And it's not really a proper bowel movement or a proper evacuation. Coffee also causes the contraction known as peristalsis in the intestinal wall within 4 minutes of consumption, and causes a fake bowel movement. It also causes the body to release the stress hormones. So coffee and caffeine are called adrenergic. And the acidity of the coffee, of course, is also a very strong intestinal irritant. Smoking decreases the strength of the lower esophageal sphincter and allows the contents of the stomach to either flow backwards into the esophagus, causing a reflux, or to have a laxative effect as well. So we have to be very mindful. If you have digestive issues, you may be unknowingly using these lifestyle kind of crutches that are working against you. Now, another thing that can go south is not producing enough bile. So the liver may be having a problem, or your gallbladder, and bile may start to get really kind of sluggish and crystallized and form gallstones. So bile is produced in the liver hepatocytes, and it's stored in the gallbladder. If the stomach is not producing enough acid, which was this slide up here, and there's no acid trigger, then there's no kind of signal happening or communication happening from the stomach to the gallbladder. And so in order to secrete bile, you need this acid trigger from the stomach. So if you are on an acid blocker or using Tums or an antacid, what you're doing is you're basically impairing the even further steps of digestion. So deficiency of water, cholesterol, and lecithin, deficiencies of nutrients such as taurine, which is an amino acid, vitamin B6, and magnesium, which is a mineral. So all of these are required by the liver and the gallbladder for bile to just flow properly. If somebody is on the birth control pill, the birth control pill is the #1 cause of gallbladder disease in women, or a woman who may be estrogen dominant. So having hormonal surges or imbalances. And this is why gallbladder removal, if you look at the statistics, happens very frequently when a woman goes into puberty. So age 13 to about 16, 17. And then again, when a woman goes into menopause, those are kind of like extra challenging times for the gallbladder when there are hormonal surges in women. And the gallbladder may have gallstones. However, just to inform you that soft stones will not show up on an ultrasound. Only gallstones that are hard and calcified will show up on an ultrasound. So there may be individuals who are going to the doctor with gallbladder pain or a gallbladder attack, and they're doing an ultrasound. They're like, I don't see anything. There's nothing there. And that may be because the stones are just simply forming and they're not hard and calcified yet. Now, just moving along digestion. So the pancreas, again, requires this acid trigger. And there are all different enzymes. So the pancreas is very unique because it is an exocrine and an endocrine gland at the same time. So when it functions as an exocrine gland, it is secreting digestive enzymes. So that's this chart here. And when it's functioning as an endocrine gland, it's actually secreting hormones. So the pancreas is the only organ that can in the body that can actually do this. So it has two main functions, interestingly enough. And in order to function, it requires good bile flow because you saw it's connected to the gallbladder. And it also requires that acid trigger from the stomach. Now, as food moves through, we have now the small intestine. So now this is where most people think the problem actually is. They're not looking upstream at the stomach, the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas. They're always thinking that everything is happening in this area. And no doubt, because the small intestine, we have about 20 feet of this. So the majority of the digestive tract, primarily anatomically, is made up of the small intestine. And the small intestine, the surface area, if we were to spread it out, it would be the equivalent of a football field because it's got these villi, these little finger-like projections, trillions and trillions of them. And then on top of the villi, it has microvilli, even smaller. And then on top of the microvilli, but you can't even see it here, here's the microvilli, we have what's called brush border enzymes. And so it's got another layer up there, which is even smaller and quite microscopic. And then in the colon, so now we have a lot of bowel diseases that can crop up with all of these things that we've talked about that can go wrong. So chronic bowel disease would be, the catch-all term is IBS. So basically the medical community throws out this term for basically anything that they don't know what's going on with the gut and the bowel. Constipation is IBS-C, diarrhea is IBS-D, and any other pains, strains, aches, problems, and things like that, where it's not showing up on a test or a scope or a scan or a colonoscopy or an endoscopy, they just call it IBS. Okay. Crohn's and colitis are autoimmune disorders of the bowel, and usually 99% of the time are driven by a pathogen, such as a bacteria or a parasite or a mycoplasma or an amoeba. And so very often using the strategy I'm about to show you can actually clear those up. And have we had clients and students that have healed from Crohn's and colitis? The answer is yes. Okay. Constipation and diarrhea, of course, usually are considered under that IBS umbrella. And polyps and diverticula are a problem, usually from modernized food. So, and then here's my slide on glyphosate. And I will say, if any one of you, I have my email and my website at the end of this slideshow. If you want a copy of this slideshow, I'd be happy to share it. If you just drop me an email, I'll send you a PDF of this. So this was taken by Dr. Stephanie Seneff. And you can also look at the work of Dr. Jeffrey Smith, who headed up the non-GMO project. He's done some very good work in the space of genetically modified and glyphosate toxicity. So many toxic effects of glyphosate, and I have a list here that glyphosate has been shown, and this is a study that has been published. So it actually has been shown to kill the beneficial bacteria in the gut that allows pathogens to overgrow, leads to inflammatory bowel disease, so inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's and colitis, and it can lead to a phenomenon called leaky gut. It interferes with the function of what's called the cytochrome P450 enzyme system in the liver. So this is called phase 1 detoxification of the liver. So it impairs the liver's ability to detoxify. And these enzyme systems, so it tells you what cytochrome P450 is responsible for. So it makes bile, activates vitamin D, detoxifies many toxic chemicals, and it breaks down prescription drugs. Okay. It also chelates and binds to very important minerals such as cobalt for B12, manganese for all the joints, and enzyme systems in the body are activated with manganese and as well as zinc, and it makes them unavailable for cellular function. It interferes with the synthesis of aromatic amino acids such as methionine, very important for detoxification, and the methylation of the liver. And it depletes glutathione, which is, of course, the body's most powerful and one of the only endogenous antioxidants that the body can produce. So how do we fix all this? There is a six-step program. We usually call it the 4R strategy because some of these R's are lumped in with one another, but I just wanted to compartmentalize it just because, for the open house talks, a lot of you maybe have not studied digestion. And so this is all new information for you. So this 4R, 5R, 6R strategy, it doesn't matter, is step 1 is digestive support. So the right digestive support. So if the stomach's not working, you can use digestive support called betaine hydrochloride or hydrochloric acid, which is taken usually from spinach or beets, and it mimics stomach acid, similarly to the way apple cider vinegar would mimic stomach acid. If you don't have a gallbladder, you should be on what's called ox bile supplement for life with every meal that contains fat. So that would be typically a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner. If you're having trouble with the gallbladder or gallbladder attacks, very often ox bile can help. But in Symptomatology Part 1, which is the course that I teach, we actually teach clinical nutrition and clinical protocols. So we would teach you how to clean the gallbladder using a combination of nutrition, diet, and herbal medicine. You can use digestive enzymes, but again, those are working down below the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas, and the stomach. Okay, so they work lower down in the digestive system. So very often somebody may go and get a probiotic and enzymes and it doesn't help them. And it's because there's something happening upstream that's just not working right. And of course, fiber and water. Step 2, and I always say this is the B in BEDMAS. BEDMAS is order of operation. When you remember in school, when you learn math. So the B in BEDMAS is balancing pH in the body. And this does more than just assist with digestion. When pH is balanced, the stress response is reduced, the adrenals function better, enzyme systems all over the body, enzymes that not just digest, but actually manufacture DNA. Everything works better in a slightly alkaline environment. So in order to adjust pH, you can use basic tablets, also known as alkaline salts, on an empty stomach. You can use an alkalizing diet where 80% of the diet is consumed from an alkaline food list. Cabbage juice on an empty stomach can help, and prebiotics can help also just balance out the pH in the gut. Step number 3 would be doing a clean sweep of any yeast, fungus, parasites, or pathogens that can inhabit the gut that are more unfriendly. And this would be to remove and bind. So there are many herbs in herbal medicine that actually act like natural antibiotics. And some of these are known as berberine, such as Oregon grape, barberry, and I always forget the third one. I'm not going to think too hard about it right now, but it'll come to me in about 10 minutes. Of course, garlic is an antibiotic herb. There's many. Artemisia, wormwood, uva ursi. There's many. There's Western and there's more traditional and Chinese medicine and Eastern herbs as well. Now you can use what's called binders, so activated charcoal, chlorella, bentonite, zeolite, and a probiotic called Saccharomyces. Saccharomyces binds up yeast and fungus, and it can help do a clean sweep of the gut. And then, of course, anti-infective foods, so garlic, ginger, turmeric, cinnamon, onion, juicing, and things like that can really help. And then the last 3 steps would be to where you would bring in a probiotic. So to balance the gut flora and just bring in some good bugs. You can do a parasite cleanse to reduce the bad guys and a yeast cleanse. And there's some more anti-infective type of items that you can use. Caprylic acid comes from coconut oil, and it's found a lot in goat products as well. You can repair the leaky gut. So some examples of strategies that we could use to help with that is colostrum. You could use L-glutamine, which is an amino acid, and a substance called tetrahydrate, which was in a product called Restore for Life. You can look that up on your own. And then, of course, to decrease stress. So we talked about that: meditation, deep breathing, breath work, blessing your meal, calming down. And if you're kind of like that stressed out type A person, you can use adaptogenic herbs and some adrenal support to help with that. So just in closing now, what type of diet? This is a loaded question. So I could actually do an entire lesson on this alone. So the diet really depends on which part of digestion requires the most care and attention. So I've just given you kind of like a list here of diets that we would consider using for balancing chronic digestive issues, and really just healing the whole gut from mouth to south. And this can include the autoimmune paleo diet, also known as the AIP diet, very good for like Crohn's and colitis and all of the other 206 autoimmune type of issues. The simple carbohydrate diet, or so this is called the SCD diet. There's forums online and there's great recipe books and books about this. You could use what's called the gut and psychology syndrome. So that's what GAP stands for, gut and psychology syndrome. This was a diet developed by a neurologist named Natasha Campbell McBride. You could try low FODMAPs, but this is more of a coping mechanism or coping strategy. It doesn't technically heal the gut, but it can help people just take out the foods that are irritating them while you use some of the digestive strategies that we just discussed. The ketotarian diet, so trying to heal the gut can be very hard for a vegan or vegetarian, because as you're seeing here, a lot of these are kind of more of a they don't kind of work. So this is the type of diet. So Dr. Will Cole developed the ketotarian diet. He has a website. He has a great book, resources for ketotarianism, and recipes on his website. So you can look up Dr. Will Cole for that. And then, of course, there's the very extreme diets that really shouldn't be used for long term, but can really just be used to reset the digestive tract, such as the carnivore or the elemental diet. And these could be done for very simply like 2 to 4 weeks to just reset everything. So I just want to thank you all for coming. I'm opening the floor now. Elizabeth is going to come on. We're going to take some questions. If you need to get in touch with me, you can do so through my website and healnaturally.ca. There's my phone number if you want to talk to me and need to get in touch with me. So I do thank you all for attending and listening. So I think Elizabeth is coming back on, or do I just open the chat, Elizabeth?
We ended, it just blanked out. You were talking about herbs, you said berry barren, and then you said...
Oh, okay. Could you still see my slides?
Yeah, we just came back on now because it wiped us all out, so... Okay.
So this is where Zoom kind of cut out on us right here.
Where it cut off. Yeah, you were at you were at prebiotics.
Yeah, down here. Oh, okay. So the anti-infective herbs it cut out at. So it talks about the binders and using foods as like natural antibiotics. And then just very quickly, of course, probiotics and just cleaning out the bad guys and recolonizing would be a step 4. So this isn't something that I would go to immediately right up front. This is something that I would do kind of in a future session or a future appointment. And after you've done all these other steps, step 1, 2, 3, and then step 4 is where you can now work at repairing a leaky gut. And we talked about leaky gut, but this is, again, an issue of lower digestion, not upper digestion. So if you're not producing enough stomach acid, you're not going to heal a leaky gut. If you don't have a gallbladder and you're not digesting fat and fatty nutrients, you're not going to heal a leaky gut. So, it is very important to replace what's missing before you try to blame all your digestive issues on this syndrome. So this would be something that we would work towards with a client and not be doing right up front in the beginning. And so I've given you some strategies here: colostrum, glutamine, and what's called tetrahydrate, which is in a product called Restore for Life. And then, of course, if you're that type A personality and you're not going to be calm when you're eating and you're running around and you're like me and you have lots of children and life is busy, then it is important to support the stress response and just help your body calm down. And this could be done with deep breathing and breath work, mindfulness and meditation. NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming. EFT stands for emotional freedom technique, and basically just living in the attitude of gratitude and not worrying about every little thing, especially things you can't control, because they just cause you to be stressed out and they cause digestion to go awry and tax out your adrenals. And, it's just not good for the whole body. So now when we do this, and what I had said when I didn't know I wasn't even speaking to you guys was that which diet? And so this is a really loaded question. I could do an entire segment on this topic alone. And so really, which diet is really dependent on which part of the digestive system requires the most care and attention. So these are diets that we talk about in nutrition for the lifespan, and we talk about these in preventative. And we actually talk about these in comparative diets. So which diet for healing the gut and supporting digestive issues? So we could choose to use what's called the autoimmune paleo diet. It's called the AIP diet. And of course, if you're trying to heal from any of the 213 autoimmune diseases, this would be a very strong clinical consideration here. You could use very good for digestion is called the simple carbohydrate diet. Now developed by Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, the GAPS diet stands for Gut and Psychology Syndrome. So if you have a child with behavioral difficulties or an adult, you can reset the gut using the GAPS diet. Low FODMAP. So FODMAP stands for fructo oligo di monosaccharides and polyols. So it is removing very hard to digest food, but I find it is more of a coping strategy than it is for basically healing. Okay, so this would be something that you could do, but you would have to do these type of strategies here in tandem with these diets as well. The ketotarian diet is high fat, high protein, and this is more what I would give to maybe one of my clients who is choosing vegan or vegetarian. So if you look at the autoimmune paleo diet, that is is quite the opposite of veganism. So Dr. Will Cole developed and basically fine-tuned the ketotarian diet. So you can go on his website. He has resources. He has a great book. He has recipes, sample meal plans, and things like that. And then I would use the carnivore and elemental diet, either one of those, as a gut reset. So I wouldn't be doing this for long term. I would be doing this just to reset the intestinal tract. So usually I would do this from anywhere from 2 weeks, 4 weeks to 8 weeks, while we work with a healing protocol and we bring in supplements, nutrients, herbal medicine, and some of those strategies that I shared up here with the 6 steps to repair digestion. And I could use either one of those diets as a very, very quick reset. So which diet? Again, that's a very loaded question. And this was basically the last slide. So I guess I was talking to nobody during that time. And I just wanted to thank you all for attending the Institute of Holistic Nutrition Open House. I hope that I see some of you in the classroom in symptomatology. If you would like this slideshow, please feel free to reach out by email. I'd be happy to share these notes with you. And for whoever wins the prize, also that we have a giveaway, which Elizabeth is going to talk about now. You can contact me through this method as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was fantastic. And Jennifer has generously offered the gift of a half price off her initial consultation, which includes 8-week health plan. It includes a live blood cell analysis. It includes QRA organ testing. This can be done online or in person. This is a value of $300. And today's winner that attended Jennifer's talk is Rebecca Hardy. Congratulations, Rebecca. So we will connect you directly with Jennifer so you can talk about that exciting congratulations. And that's wonderful, wonderful. So we have some amazing
Were there any questions?
Yeah, let's see if there's any questions from anyone. So in regards to the prebiotics, what are some of the recommendations as far as brands and when to take the prebiotics that you have?
So prebiotics, basically, if you look up the definition of prebiotic, it is a non-digestible food ingredient that actually sets up the gut for probiotics to kind of anchor themselves. And basically a prebiotic is very simply fiber. So, eating whole foods, making sure you're getting whole grains or ancient grains, making sure you're getting, basically your 5 to 6 cups of veggies and your 2 fruits a day. You really shouldn't need to take a prebiotic. I will just mention, though, that for people who do have a lot of intestinal distress, gas and bloating and kind of things that are going awry, a prebiotic can be very irritating. And in many probiotics that are on the market, you'll see an ingredient that says FOS. It stands for fructooligosaccharides, FOS. And that FOS is basically a prebiotic, and it can be very irritating up front. And again, that's why I have, this particular order of operation, or bed mass, so to speak, of how to heal the gut in this particular order, because the FOS in a probiotic can be very irritating. So this would be something that I wouldn't be turning to initially for a client until I've done kind of like the replace, the rebalancing, and the cleanup, because a probiotic can't anchor itself when there's yeast and fungus and perhaps parasitic activity in the gut. So it would be something I would work on later on.
Fantastic. Beautiful. Yeah, no, that's an incredible process that you put there. Those 6 steps are very thorough, very straightforward. And if you stick to that, you're definitely looking towards achieving optimal digestion. Absolutely. So Jennifer, thank you so much. It was very informative, very thorough. And again, you can catch Jennifer Papaconstantinou in our Nutritional Symptomatology Part 1 course. She does also teach lifespan and fundamentals, but she is definitely a pro in symptomatology Part 1 in regards to running a very successful and busy clinical practice. I know Jen has been in practice for over 15 years, right?
Yes.
And we hear so much from Jennifer's clients and the wonderful feedback that they provide. So thank you so much, Jen. And I pray you have a great rest of your Saturday today.
Thank you. It's a glorious day. So bye.
Bye-bye.